The holographic display flickered with a constellation of diplomatic contempt. Delegates from across the known galaxy gathered to witness what most considered the most elaborate practical joke in interstellar history, humanity's first attempt at deep space exploration. The U.S. Defiance hung in the virtual projection like an awkward metal beast, a mishmash of technologies that looked more like a salvage yard experiment than a serious spacecraft. Solarian diplomats, with their crystalline exoskeletons and translucent neural tendrils, projected waves of dismissive energy that rippled through the conference chamber. Their lead representative, Ambassador Krelltax, extended a translucent appendage toward the holographic image, tracing the ship's seemingly random configurations with visible disdain. "Observe the primitive attempts at space engineering," Krelltax announced, his universal translator rendering the words with a pitch of condescension that could strip paint. "Humanity continues to demonstrate why they remain the galactic equivalent of children playing with advanced machinery." The Silicon Collective of Rigel Prime responded with a synchronized mathematical projection. Thousands of computational nodes flickered in unison, displaying probability models that painted the U.S. Defiance's mission as a statistical impossibility. Bright holographic graphs showed a 99.87% chance of catastrophic failure within the first parsec of travel, with secondary models suggesting the ship might not even clear Earth's orbital defense grid. Aboard the actual vessel, no one seemed particularly concerned. Captain Jack Reynolds stood on the bridge with a posture that defied the galactic ridicule. His crew of 150 humans moved with a precision that belied their supposedly primitive status. Each station was a testament to human ingenuity. Systems cobbled together from multiple technologies, jury-rigged solutions that looked chaotic but functioned with remarkable efficiency. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, the ship's tactical officer, caught Reynolds' eye and allowed herself the slightest smirk. They both knew something the galactic community had repeatedly failed to understand. Humanity's greatest strength was never found in perfection, but in adaptation. The ship's communication systems crackled with incoming transmissions. Diplomatic channels from multiple star systems continued their barrage of skepticism, each message a carefully crafted insult disguised as scientific observation. The Eldarin Consortium suggested the mission was nothing more than an elaborate performance to gain galactic sympathy. The Zorn Imperium's military analysts predicted the vessel would be fortunate to survive its own launch sequence. Kyle Rodriguez, the lead engineer, was busy running a final series of diagnostic checks. His workstation looked like a controlled explosion of holographic interfaces and mechanical readouts. Where alien technologies relied on precise, predetermined systems, Rodriguez's approach was a living, breathing thing, constantly adjusting, constantly improving. Structural integrity at 103% redundancy, he called out, his voice carrying a note of barely contained excitement. Propulsion systems are reading green across all experimental configurations. Commander Elena White, Reynolds' second-in-command, monitored the external communications. Each dismissive message was logged, recorded, a future testament to the galactic community's lack of vision. "They're really going all out today," she murmured, her fingers dancing across her communication console. "I don't think I've ever seen so many sophisticated ways of saying you're going to fail." Reynolds allowed himself a low chuckle. Let them talk. The bridge crew exchanged knowing glances. They were used to being the underdogs, used to proving everyone wrong. This mission was more than just a space exploration project. It was a statement, a declaration that humanity would not be constrained by the limitations others attempted to impose. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, Earth hung like a blue-green jewel, a planet that had survived countless challenges, that had transformed itself repeatedly through innovation and sheer stubborn determination. The U.S. Defiance was a reflection of that spirit, imperfect, unpredictable, but unquestionably alive with potential. The countdown to launch began. Somewhere in the vast holographic chamber of the Galactic Confederation, something fundamental was about to change, though no one yet realized just how profound that change would be. The spatial anomaly erupted like a cosmic wound, tearing through the carefully maintained trade routes of the Galactic Confederation. Holographic displays across 1,000 command centers flickered with impossible readings, energy patterns that defied every known law of quantum mechanics, spatial dynamics, and fundamental physics. Admiral Xirak of the Zorn Imperium watched in growing horror as the anomaly consumed entire navigation beacons. Quantum-locked communication relays went dark one by one, their sophisticated systems overwhelmed by the chaotic energy signature. The most advanced sensor arrays in the known galaxy produced nothing but static and gibberish, a universal language of complete incomprehension. "This is impossible," Xirak muttered, his six-fingered hands moving across holographic interfaces with increasing desperation. Sophisticated tracking systems that could detect a molecule's movement across light years now produced nothing but meaningless data streams. The Eldarin Consortium's most brilliant minds gathered in their crystalline conference chamber, their neural networks interconnecting in a display of collective intelligence that had solved countless galactic challenges. Now they found themselves utterly paralyzed. The spatial anomaly consumed information faster than they could process it, creating gaps in their understanding that felt like physical wounds. Deep within the Galactic Confederation's emergency command center, a tense debate erupted. Diplomatic channels crackled with panic and uncertainty. Entire trade routes, the economic lifelines connecting hundreds of star systems, faced complete disruption. "We cannot send our primary vessels," warned Counselor Trenak, representative of the Silicon Collective. His holographic projection trembled with mathematical precision. "The risk of total system failure is 99.999%. Our most advanced ships would be completely compromised." The chamber fell silent. The unspoken truth hung in the air. They needed a solution, and they needed it immediately. Captain Jack Reynolds received the transmission with a calm that surprised even his own crew. The holographic message flickered, revealing the desperate faces of the Galactic Confederation's leadership. Their proposal was unprecedented and transparently desperate. "The U.S. Defiance will be deployed as an initial probe," the lead counselor stated, her voice betraying a mix of hope and resignation. "Your vessel represents an acceptable loss." Commander Elena White caught Reynolds' eye. The phrase "acceptable loss" carried a weight that went beyond mere statistical calculation. It was a death sentence, carefully worded in diplomatic language. Kyle Rodriguez was already running simulations at his engineering station. His fingers moved like a concert pianist, interfaces responding to his touch with an almost supernatural speed. Where other engineers saw impossible challenges, Rodriguez saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. "The anomaly isn't random," he called out, his voice cutting through the bridge's tense atmosphere. "It's responsive. There's a pattern here that our alien friends are missing completely." Lieutenant Sarah Martinez brought up tactical displays, showing the anomaly's progression. It moved like a living thing, unpredictable, but not entirely chaotic. Each expansion seemed to follow a logic that conventional sensor arrays couldn't comprehend. Reynolds studied the displays, a plan forming in his mind. The Galactic Confederation saw the U.S. Defiance as an expendable probe, a sacrificial vessel sent to gather initial data. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of. "Prepare for immediate departure," Reynolds commanded. His voice carried a quiet certainty that sent a wave of confidence through the crew. They weren't just accepting a suicide mission. They were about to rewrite the rules of galactic exploration. The ship's systems hummed to life. Experimental propulsion technologies that had been laughed out of every serious scientific conference now represented humanity's best hope. Jury-rigged systems that looked like controlled chaos to outside observers were about to be tested in the most extreme conditions imaginable. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, Earth grew smaller. The blue-green planet seemed to pulse with a silent challenge, a reminder of every obstacle humanity had ever overcome. They were going to show the galaxy exactly what expendable truly meant. Kyle Rodriguez's engineering bay looked like a controlled explosion of technology. Holographic interfaces danced around him, each one a testament to human innovation that defied conventional engineering logic. Where alien technologies relied on pristine, predetermined systems, Rodriguez's approach was a living, breathing entity, constantly shifting, adapting, reimagining itself with each passing moment. "We're not going to approach this like a traditional mission," he announced to his team of engineers. The group was a diverse collection of humanity's most brilliant misfits, individuals who had been rejected by conventional scientific institutions, but possessed an innovative spark that burned far brighter than traditional methodologies. Lieutenant Marcus Chen, the team's quantum systems specialist, brought up a complex holographic model of the spatial anomaly. The projection showed layers of energy patterns that looked more like abstract art than scientific data. Traditional sensor arrays had failed to make sense of the phenomenon, but Chen saw something different. "Look at the energy dispersal," he said, rotating the holographic model. "It's not random. There's a rhythm here, a pattern that keeps shifting just beyond our ability to fully comprehend it." Rodriguez leaned in, his eyes catching subtle variations that most would have missed. The anomaly wasn't just a spatial disturbance. It was behaving like a complex, living system. Each expansion, each contraction seemed to follow an internal logic that defied current scientific understanding. "We're going to build a response system," Rodriguez explained, "not a predictive model." The difference was crucial. Where alien civilizations would attempt to mathematically model and predict the anomaly's behavior, the human team was preparing to interact with it dynamically. Their systems were being designed to respond in real time, to adapt instantaneously, to turn the very unpredictability into an advantage. Commander Elena White watched from the doorway, a slight smile playing on her lips. The engineering team worked like a living organism, each member anticipating the other's moves, creating solutions that were greater than the sum of their individual talents. Experimental interfaces began to take shape. Rodriguez had developed a hybrid system that combined mechanical redundancy with adaptive programming. Traditional quantum computing relied on stable, predetermined pathways. His design was something else entirely. A system that could reconfigure itself on the fly, that saw limitations as challenges to be overcome. "We're building a communication interface," Rodriguez explained to Captain Reynolds during a briefing. "Not in the traditional sense. We're creating a way to interact with the anomaly that doesn't rely on language or mathematical communication." The captain understood immediately. They weren't going to analyze the spatial phenomenon. They were going to engage with it. Each system Rodriguez designed carried multiple failsafes, but also multiple potential paths of innovation. Where a traditional engineering approach would seek to minimize variables, his approach embraced them. Every potential point of failure was also a potential point of breakthrough. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez brought in the latest sensor data from the forward observation decks. The anomaly was expanding, its energy patterns becoming more complex. To any other civilization, this would be a moment of increasing panic. To the U.S. Defiance's crew, it was an opportunity. "We're going to make first contact," Rodriguez said, his voice carrying a mixture of scientific excitement and pure human audacity. "Not by trying to understand the anomaly, but by showing it what humanity is capable of." The engineering team worked with an intensity that bordered on the mystical. Holographic interfaces became extensions of their thoughts. Mechanical systems responded to intuitive adjustments that no programming manual could have predicted. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, the spatial anomaly continued its impossible dance. Little did it know that a group of humans were preparing to rewrite the very rules of engagement. Somewhere in the vast communication networks of the Galactic Confederation, sensor arrays continued to produce nothing but confusion. But aboard the U.S. Defiance, confusion was just another word for opportunity. The moment of first contact was nothing like anyone had anticipated. The spatial anomaly pulsed with an energy that defied conventional understanding. Quantum sensors across the Galactic Confederation's most advanced vessels produced nothing but static, a universal language of complete incomprehension. But aboard the U.S. Defiance, incomprehension was just another word for challenge. Kyle Rodriguez's experimental interface began to emit a series of mechanical vibrations. They weren't sounds in the traditional sense, nor were they simple data transmissions. Each pulse was a complex symphony of mechanical and quantum interactions, a language that spoke not through words or mathematics, but through pure potential. Lieutenant Marcus Chen watched the initial responses with a mixture of scientific fascination and pure human excitement. The anomaly wasn't just responding, it was engaging. Where other civilizations saw an incomprehensible energy construct, the human team saw a conversation waiting to happen. "It's listening," Chen muttered, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Not just receiving, actually listening. Captain Jack Reynolds stood on the bridge, his posture a study in controlled tension. The Galactic Confederation's communication channels were silent, their most advanced listening posts producing nothing but confused reports. But something was happening, something fundamental was shifting. The U.S. Defiance's systems began to pulse in a rhythm that was both mechanical and organic. Rodriguez had designed the interface to be a living thing, not a static transmission, but a dynamic interaction. Each mechanical vibration carried layers of information, adaptive patterns that could reshape themselves instantaneously. Commander Elena White monitored the external sensors. The spatial anomaly was changing. Its previously chaotic energy patterns were beginning to show signs of something that almost resembled communication. But it wasn't communication in any traditional sense. It was more like a dance, a complex negotiation of potential and possibility. "We're not trying to understand it," Rodriguez had explained earlier. "We're trying to interact with it." The difference was crucial. Where alien civilizations would attempt to analyze, categorize, and control, the human approach was fundamentally different. They were engaging with the anomaly as a potential partner, not a problem to be solved. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez brought up tactical displays that looked more like abstract art than scientific data. The anomaly's energy patterns were changing, responding to the U.S. Defiance's unique approach. Traditional sensor arrays would have missed the subtle shifts, but human intuition saw something more. On the communication console, a series of impossible readings began to take shape. Not data in any traditional sense, but something more profound. The anomaly was learning, adapting, responding to the human vessel's approach in ways that defied all existing scientific understanding. "Captain," Chen called out, his voice carrying a note of barely contained excitement. "It's reciprocating. The energy patterns, they're not just responding. They're initiating." Reynolds allowed himself a slight smile. The Galactic Confederation had sent them as an expendable probe, a sacrificial vessel to gather initial data. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of. The mechanical vibrations continued, a complex language of potential and possibility. Each pulse carried layers of information that went beyond traditional communication. It was an approach that was simultaneously mechanical and intuitive, precise and improvisational. Across the vast communication networks of the Galactic Confederation, sensor arrays continued to produce nothing but confusion. Advanced civilizations with millennia of technological development found themselves completely unable to comprehend what was happening. But aboard the U.S. Defiance, something extraordinary was unfolding. They weren't just making first contact, they were rewriting the very rules of galactic interaction. The spatial anomaly pulsed again. And this time, it was definitely speaking their language. The breakthrough came without warning. One moment, the spatial anomaly was a chaotic mass of impossible energy patterns. The next, it began to reveal a structure that defied every known principle of quantum mechanics, spatial dynamics, and fundamental physics. The watching alien races went silent, their most sophisticated sensor arrays producing nothing but bewildered data streams. Captain Jack Reynolds stood on the bridge, watching as the impossible became reality. Lieutenant Marcus Chen's hands moved across holographic interfaces with a speed that blurred the line between human intuition and technological mastery. The anomaly was no longer just responding, it was communicating. "It's not just an energy construct," Chen called out, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and pure human wonder. It's a living system. It has memory. It has intention. Kyle Rodriguez's experimental interface had done more than just make contact. It had opened a window into something that no other civilization had ever managed to comprehend. Where advanced alien technologies saw only data and mathematical possibilities, the human team saw a potential partner, a complex entity waiting to be understood. Commander Elena White monitored the external communications. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced listening posts were completely overwhelmed. Diplomatic channels crackled with confusion and mounting panic. How could a single human vessel achieve what millennia of technological development had failed to accomplish? The anomaly's energy patterns began to take on a structure that almost resembled language. But it wasn't language in any traditional sense. It was a complex dance of potential and possibility, a communication that transcended traditional modes of understanding. "We're not decoding it," Rodriguez explained to the bridge crew. "We're engaging with it." The difference was fundamental. Where alien civilizations would attempt to break down the anomaly into measurable components, the human approach was far more intuitive. They were treating the spatial phenomenon as a living entity, a potential partner in a cosmic dialogue. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez brought up tactical displays that looked more like abstract art than scientific data. The anomaly was revealing layers of complexity that went far beyond energy patterns and quantum interactions. It was showing signs of something that bordered on consciousness, a living system that could adapt, learn, and respond. "Captain," Chen called out, "it's sharing information, not just responding, actually sharing." The bridge crew watched in awe as impossible data streams began to take shape. Complex energy patterns that had previously defied all understanding were now revealing glimpses of something profound. The anomaly wasn't just a spatial disturbance. It was a repository of information, a living memory that stretched across unimaginable distances. Reynolds understood immediately. This wasn't just first contact. This was a fundamental reimagining of what first contact could mean. The Galactic Confederation's most brilliant minds gathered in emergency sessions. How could a single human vessel achieve what their most advanced technologies had failed to accomplish? The Silicon Collective's computational arrays crashed under the weight of data that defied all existing models. The Zorn Imperium's military strategists found their predictive algorithms completely useless. Aboard the U.S. Defiance, the crew worked with an intensity that bordered on the mystical. Holographic interfaces became extensions of human thought. Mechanical systems responded to intuitive adjustments that no programming manual could have predicted. "We're not just exploring," Rodriguez said, his voice carrying a mixture of scientific excitement and pure human audacity. "We're establishing a relationship." Outside the ship's reinforced windows, the spatial anomaly continued its impossible dance. But now something had fundamentally changed. The entity was no longer just a phenomenon to be studied. It was a potential partner in a cosmic dialogue. The human approach had done what millennia of technological development had failed to accomplish. They hadn't conquered the anomaly. They had connected with it. And somewhere in the vast communication networks of the Galactic Confederation, a fundamental understanding was beginning to shift. Humanity was no longer just another emerging species. They were something else entirely. Galactic communication channels erupted with a mixture of panic and disbelief. The U.S. Defiance had done more than simply survive its encounter with the spatial anomaly. It was now demonstrating a level of control that defied every known principle of scientific understanding. Admiral Xirak of the Zorn Imperium watched in growing horror as navigation beacons previously consumed by the anomaly began to stabilize. Quantum-locked communication relays that had gone dark now flickered back to life, their systems reconfigured in ways that seemed impossible just hours before. "This cannot be happening," Xirak muttered, his six-fingered hands moving across holographic interfaces with increasing desperation. The most sophisticated tracking systems in the known galaxy now produced data streams that challenged everything they understood about spatial dynamics. The Eldarin Consortium's neural network, A collective intelligence that had solved countless galactic challenges found itself completely paralyzed. Their most brilliant minds struggled to comprehend how a single human vessel could achieve what millennia of technological development had failed to accomplish. Aboard the U.S. Defiance, Captain Jack Reynolds maintained a calm that bordered on the supernatural. Kyle Rodriguez's engineering team had transformed from a group of misfit engineers to the most important scientific team in galactic history. "We're not controlling the anomaly," Rodriguez explained during an emergency briefing. "We're negotiating with it." The difference was crucial. Where alien civilizations would attempt to dominate or suppress the spatial phenomenon, the human approach was fundamentally collaborative. They saw the anomaly not as a problem to be solved, but as a complex entity to be understood. Lieutenant Marcus Chen brought up holographic displays that looked more like living art than scientific data. The spatial anomaly was now revealing layers of complexity that went far beyond energy patterns and quantum interactions. It was showing signs of a dynamic system that could adapt, learn, and respond in real time. Commander Elena White monitored external communications. The Galactic Confederation's diplomatic channels were a cacophony of confusion, fear, and barely contained panic. How could a vessel they had dismissed as expendable now be demonstrating capabilities that surpassed their most advanced technologies? The Silicon Collective's computational arrays began to crash under the weight of data that defied all existing models. Predictive algorithms that had been developed over thousands of years became nothing more than useless lines of code. "The anomaly is being redirected," Chen called out, his voice carrying a mixture of scientific excitement and pure human wonder. Not suppressed. Redirected. It was a subtle but profound distinction. The human team wasn't attempting to destroy or control the spatial phenomenon. They were engaging with it, understanding its fundamental nature, and finding a way to coexist. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez brought up tactical displays that showed the anomaly's energy patterns being carefully guided. Where other civilizations would have seen this as an act of conquest, the human approach was more like a complex dance, a negotiation between equals. The Zorn Imperium's military strategists began emergency sessions. Their most advanced war simulations became obsolete in moments. The vessel they had laughed at, the mission they had considered a joke, was now rewriting the fundamental rules of galactic interaction. "We're showing them a different way of understanding," Rodriguez said, his voice carrying a quiet certainty that sent waves of confidence through the crew. Not through force, through communication. Aboard the ship, each system responded with an almost living intelligence. Mechanical interfaces became extensions of human thought, adapting and responding in ways that defied traditional engineering logic. Outside the reinforced windows, the spatial anomaly continued its impossible dance. But now, something had fundamentally changed. What was once a threat to galactic trade routes was now becoming something else entirely, a potential pathway, a new understanding of spatial dynamics. The U.S. Defiance had done more than survive. It had transformed the very understanding of what was possible. Somewhere in the vast communication networks of the Galactic Confederation, a fundamental shift was occurring. Humanity was no longer just another emerging species. They were something else entirely, a force of innovation that could not be predicted, controlled, or understood through traditional means. The diplomatic summit convened in the most secure facility of the Galactic Confederation, a massive crystalline structure that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to unfold. Delegates from across the known galaxy assembled, their collective tension thick enough to cut with a quantum blade. The Solarian diplomats who had once laughed at humanity now sat in stunned silence. The Silicon Collective's representatives looked like computational ghosts, their neural networks still struggling to process the impossible data from the U.S. Defiance's mission. Captain Jack Reynolds stood at the center of the massive circular chamber, accompanied by Kyle Rodriguez and Lieutenant Marcus Chen. They were not dressed in formal diplomatic attire but in their standard mission uniforms, a subtle reminder that they were explorers, not politicians. "Explain," demanded Ambassador Kreltax, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting with barely contained agitation. How did a single human vessel accomplish what millennia of galactic research could not? Rodriguez stepped forward. Where other scientists might have launched into complex technical explanations, he took a different approach. "We didn't solve a problem," he said simply. "We started a conversation." The chamber fell silent. The concept was so fundamentally alien to the assembled delegates that it took several moments to process. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez activated a holographic display that looked more like abstract art than scientific data. Complex energy patterns from the spatial anomaly danced across the projection, revealing layers of complexity that defied traditional understanding. "The anomaly isn't just an energy construct," Chen explained. "It's a living system. We didn't conquer it. We communicated with it." Commander Elena White stood slightly behind the primary team, monitoring the diplomatic channels. She could see the mounting confusion, the growing fear in the delegates' expressions. Humanity was no longer the naive newcomer to galactic politics. They had just become something entirely unexpected. The Zorn Imperium's lead strategist, a massive bipedal creature with redundant neural systems, struggled to articulate a response. Their most advanced predictive models had been rendered completely useless by the U.S. Defiance's mission. "You suggest," Ambassador Kreltax said slowly, "that you treated a fundamental spatial disturbance as a living entity." "Not just treated," Reynolds responded. "Engaged with. Understood." The difference was profound. Where alien civilizations saw challenges to be overcome through technological superiority, humanity saw opportunities for communication, for understanding, for collaboration. The holographic displays continued to shift, showing how the spatial anomaly had been carefully redirected rather than destroyed. It was a nuanced approach that went beyond simple problem-solving. It was a fundamental reimagining of interaction. "Our technologies are designed to control," Rodriguez explained. "Our approach was to understand." Each delegate processed this differently. The Silicon Collective's representatives saw it as a complete breakdown of their computational models. The Eldarin Consortium recognized it as a form of intelligence that their own systems had never conceived. The diplomatic chamber became a crucible of shifting perceptions. Humanity was no longer just another emerging species. They were a wild card, an unpredictable force that could not be categorized, controlled, or easily understood. "We're offering a different way of exploring," Captain Reynolds said, his voice calm and direct. "Not through conquest, through communication." Lieutenant Chen brought up additional data streams, showing how the spatial anomaly had been transformed from a destructive force into a potential pathway for understanding. Each visualization challenged everything the assembled delegates thought they knew about spatial dynamics, about first contact, about the very nature of exploration. The Excelarian diplomats, who had once laughed at humanity's technological limitations, now sat in stunned silence. The vessel they had dismissed as a joke had just rewritten the fundamental rules of galactic interaction. Somewhere in that moment, something fundamental shifted. The Galactic Confederation would never be the same again. Humanity had arrived. Not with a bang, but with a conversation. The U.S. Defiance approached Earth, but it was no longer just a vessel. It had become a symbol, a testament to humanity's potential that would reshape galactic understanding for generations to come. Captain Jack Reynolds stood on the bridge, watching the blue-green planet grow larger in the view screen. The mission had changed everything. Where they had been sent as an expendable probe, they were now returning as something entirely unexpected. Kyle Rodriguez's engineering team had transformed the very concept of space exploration. Their approach to the spatial anomaly had become required study in diplomatic and scientific circles across multiple star systems. What had begun as a mission of potential sacrifice had become a landmark moment in human history. "Incoming transmission," Lieutenant Sarah Martinez called out. Multiple diplomatic channels. The communication interfaces lit up with requests from every major galactic power. The Zorn Imperium wanted detailed reports. The Eldarin Consortium requested comprehensive data streams. The Silicon Collective sought to understand the computational methodology that had seemed to defy all existing scientific principles. Commander Elena White managed the incoming communications with a precision that reflected the mission's profound impact. Each transmission carried an undertone of something new: respect, curiosity, and a hint of carefully concealed fear. Lieutenant Marcus Chen brought up holographic displays showing the transformed spatial anomaly. What had once been a destructive force was now a potential pathway for understanding, a bridge between different forms of intelligence that no one had previously imagined possible. "We didn't solve a problem," Rodriguez said, reviewing the mission logs. "We started a conversation." The difference was everything. Earth grew larger in the view screen, a blue-green jewel that had always been more than it appeared. Humanity had just proven that their greatest strength wasn't technological superiority, but the ability to approach the unknown with curiosity, creativity, and a fundamental belief in communication. The diplomatic fallout was unprecedented. Galactic trade routes that had been threatened by the spatial anomaly were now potential pathways of exploration. Scientific understanding had been completely upended. The very concept of first contact was being rewritten. "Incoming priority transmission from Galactic Confederation headquarters," Martins announced. The holographic display revealed a collection of diplomatic representatives from across known space. Their expressions were a mixture of confusion, respect, and carefully contained anxiety. "The U.S. defiance is hereby recognized," the lead diplomat began, "as a pivotal mission in galactic exploration." Reynolds allowed himself a slight smile. Pivotal was an understatement. The mission had revealed something fundamental about humanity. Where other civilizations saw challenges as problems to be solved through technological superiority, humans saw opportunities for understanding. Their approach wasn't about conquest or control, but about communication and collaboration. Chen's research teams were already developing new communication protocols based on the mission's discoveries. The spatial anomaly had become more than just a scientific curiosity. It was a potential bridge between different forms of intelligence. Rodriguez's engineering innovations were being studied across multiple scientific institutions. They had demonstrated an approach to problem-solving that went beyond traditional technological thinking. As the ship approached Earth's orbital defense grid, Reynolds reflected on the journey. They had been sent as an expendable probe, a sacrificial vessel to gather initial data. Instead, they had rewritten the fundamental rules of galactic interaction. The blue-green planet grew larger, a reminder of everything that made humanity unique. Not their technology, not their weapons, but their ability to see potential where others saw only obstacles. "Prepare for Earth approach," Reynolds commanded. Martinez looked up from her console, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Welcome home," she said. But they all knew the truth. This wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning. Somewhere in the vast communication networks of the Galactic Confederation, a fundamental understanding had shifted. Humanity was no longer just another emerging species. They were something else entirely.